the 19th day of the month of Elul, and we are learning Maseches Pesachim, new Mishnah, starting on Daf Chaf Ches Amud Beis. Sending out the link over here so that everybody's got it. And there we go. And we are at the Mishnah at the bottom of Daf Chaf Ches Amud Aleph. The Gemara tells us as follows. The Mishnah tells us as follows: Chametz shel Nachri she'avar alav Pesach. If you have the chametz of a non-Jew, she'avar alav Pesach, that has had Pesach pass over it, literally, meaning that the chametz of a non-Jew that existed during Pesach, mutar behana, it is permissible to gain benefit from that after Pesach, obviously. V'shel Yisrael, and if it belongs to a Jew, also behana, that does not that is not allowed to be used. Shenemar, the pasuk says, lo yira'et lecha se'ar, that you should not have, you should not own any yeast. The Gemara is going to try to understand exactly what this Isser is and what the pasuk is doing here. It says the Gemara, Mani Mas Nisin, who is the Tana of our Mishnah? Lo Rabbi Yehuda, v'lo Rabbi Shimon, v'lo Rabbi Yossi Aglili. It is none of the three that we have been discussing up until this point in time. Three of those that we've been discussing, not Rabbi Yehuda, not Rabbi Shimon, and not Rabbi Yossi Aglili. So, Mahi, what is the rationale? The Tanya, they say, Chametz bein lifnei zmanai bein lachas zmanai. Chametz, whether it is before the Zman of the Isser on Erev Pesach or after the Zman of the Isser on Erev Pesach, over alav be-lav, you would violate an Isser lav. Tarech Zmanai, if you Tarech Zmanai, during the time that it is Aser, over alav be-lav v'kares, you could violate a lav and you could violate an Isser kares. Rashi here says, what does it mean? Bein livnei zman and bein archim. So livnei zman is mishei shas ad shetachshach, from 6 hours of the day until it gets dark. La'achar zman misha avra Pesach, that is after Pesach, meaning before 6 hours of the day and after before the 6 hours of the day on Erev Pesach and after Pesach, that is livnei zman and la'achar zman. So you could be over on a lav. Ve'im achloi eina orange kares, it'll come in first lav. And we're going to try and figure out what this lav is, Rashi says, but there'll be no isu kares. If it is during the Zman, that would be during Pesach itself, there's a lav and kares. Div Rabbi Yehuda, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon says, Chametz lifnei zmanai, Chametz before its time, before 6 hours of the day, and after Pesach, ain't over alav b'lei klum. There's no Isser at all. There's no Isser to talk about. Tarech, if it is during Pesach, over alav b'kares u'b'lav, you'd be violating kares and alav. Mi shah she'asva achila asvana. And from the time that, this is the continuation of that brisa, and from the moment that it is asva b'achila, it's also asva b'hana. That would be on a level of deraisa. Obviously, we discussed that we stop eating chametz before we stop benefiting from it, and that was the previous Mishnah. Asana Tanakam, it comes out according to the Tanakam. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, he's holding more or less the same as the opinion of the Tanakam. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Rabbi Yossi says, you should be astounded by yourself. Hey, chametz also behana kol shiva. How do you say that chametz has an issa hana all 7 days? And how do you know that eating chametz from 6 hours of the day and onwards that you have violated a lois haseh? Shenemar loy teichal alav chametz. You are not allowed to eat chametz. When are you not allowed to eat chametz? You're not allowed to eat chametz on it. What's it? So that is in the context of the Karban Pesach. Loy teichal alav chametz. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon says, is it even possible to say such a thing? We already know that you're not allowed to have chametz with the Karban Pesach. And then we say, Shivas Yom matzahs, that you are obligated to eat matzahs. If that's so, that you have a prohibition of eating chametz and a chiyuv of eating matzahs, so what does lo yisachal alav chametz mean? During the period of time that there is a obligation to eat matzah, there is an obligation not to eat chametz. And when there is no obligation of eating matzah, then there is no prohibition of eating chametz. Meaning, on Erev Pesach, there is no obligation to eat matzah. In fact, you're not allowed to. So how could you say that there would be an isser of eating chametz then? My time to Rabbi Yehuda, what's the rationale of Rabbi Yehuda's answer? He says, let's analyze this. There are 3 psukim here. 3 different psukim. Pasuk number 1. Lo ya'achel chametz. You should not eat chametz. That is pasuk number 1. That is in Shmos Yud Gimel. Yud Gimel, pasuk Gimel. And then, v'chol machmetzes lo yisechelu. Any leaven you should not eat. That is the pasuk in Shmos Yud Gimel, pasuk Chaf. And then lo yisechel alav chametz. You should not eat any chametz on it. Chad lifnei zmanu, v'chad la'achar zmanu, v'chad l'sat zmanu. One of them is talking about before the time, one is talking about during the time, one is talking about after the time. So you have 3 separate psukim that are detailing 3 separate isurim here. Rashi points out here, lo yisachal alav chametz means mishas shchita, from the time of shchita, dahainu mishay shasamala. That's the pasuk that we tell you about beforehand. Says the Gemara, okay, according to Rabbi Shimon, how does Rabbi Shimon hold of these psukim? He says, Chad l'taychsmane, one pasuk is talking about during the time of the Yisur. V'chol machmetzes, then the pasuk of v'chol machmetzes, do not eat any leaven. He needs it for another limit, for this brisa. He says, Ein li ela she'nit chametz me'elav. That is only talking about, I only know that you're not allowed to eat chametz with it, she'nis chametz me'elav, when it became chametz by itself. Machmas davar acher minayin. But how do I know that something is also aser if it became chametz through something else? What does it mean that it became chametz through something else? So the Gemara continues, Talmud Leimer, kol machmetzes lo yisechelu, that you should not eat any machmetzes. Lo yachel chametz mibayale. Well, it should have said chametz shouldn't be eaten. What does it mean? Kol machmetzes lo yisechelu. Lo yachel chametz. Should have said the word chametz. So lo yachel chametz mibayale. Sorry, that's the third pasuk. So the first pasuk is chametz l'sech zmane, that there's an issue of chametz l'sech zmane. The second pasuk is chametz mishum machmas davar acher minayin talmud loymar kol machmetzes lo yisechelu. The pasuk that tells you that chametz that became chametz as a result of something else, not by itself, does not is also aser. And the third pasuk lo yachel chametz, so mibayle, that he needs for the din of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Yossi Aglili omer minayin lePesach Mitzrayim she'en chimutzay noeg ela yom echad. How do we know that when the Jews came out of Egypt that the Isur of chametz was only for one day? Talmud lomer lo yachel chametz v'samich lei hayom atem yotzim. But the pasuk says, "Do not eat chametz," and right after that it says, "Hayom atem yotzim b'chodesh Aviv." This day is the day that you are coming out of Mitzrayim. So these 3 psukim teach you 3 different dinim. None of them teach you the Isser of chametz after Pesach. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, machmas davar achim minale. How does he know that chametz is also aser if it comes as a result of something else? The Rashi here says, sorry, we'll come back to that Rashi in a second. Rabbi Yehuda, machmas davar achim min ali. So he says, mida'avker rachmana b'lashon machmetzes, from the fact that the Torah says machmetzes, which is a strange word, right? Meaning the word should have been chametz, but since Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda, the word is not chametz. The word is machmetzes, something that becomes chametz in some other way. What exactly does machmas davar acher mean? So if you take a look at the Tosfos on the side of the page, machmas davar acher, so Pirish Riva, what exactly is this davar acher? Machmas davar acher delav minoi, something that is not of the same species as it. Da aldi de se'ar mikri chametz, tfei mishe nid chametz me'elav. It becomes super chametz as a result of being mixed in with yeast. Like the Gemara says in Menachos, Elakagunshin is chametz al yedei shimri yayin, shemis yavshin hashomrim betoner, gila osim kasher osim be'eretz Ashkenaz. So he says that sometimes it is possible that instead of using a wheat-based yeast, meaning or a grain-based yeast, you could use something else. What's that something else? For example, you could mix it in with some kind of fermented wine, the dregs of the wine, the shimri yain. He says, and this is what we do in Eretz Ashkenaz. And he says, and that and what that would come out to be is, if you don't hold of this iser, then this would become an iser she nilusha beyain deleis beikaris v'yesh ba lav. This would become a chametz that doesn't have an iser kares because it is machmas davar acher, but it does have an iser lav, and this is what we refer to as egg matzahs. Egg matzahs, that there is an iser lav, says the Tosfos, according to this shita, but there is not an iser kares. It's not chametz as an iser kares because it is made with something else. Assuming that would make it rise, meaning there'd be some kind of chimutz process as a result of that. The reason that Ashkenazim paskin not to eat egg matzahs is because we are concerned that process might happen quicker, as in the chimutz process is quicker through a davar acher than it would through regular wheat and water. Says the Gemara, the Rabbi Yossi Aglili. The Rabbi Yossi Aglili minale, and how does Rabbi Yossi Aglili know that the isur of eating chametz on Pesach was in Pesach Mitzrayim was only one day? You could say midasamach le hayom because of the juxtaposition of hayom. You could say smuchel le darsh, that he doesn't hold of psukim next to each other being interpreted next to each other. Meaning one of those two. Meaning you can either say that he holds, taka, that it says that machmetzes and hayom in the very next pasuk, or you can say that he doesn't hold of this at all. Amar, either which way, it's not going to be halacha l'maisa for us today. Amar, the Amoraim said, one of the Amoraim said, how do you know that somebody eating chametz on Erev Pesach from midday and onwards has violated a negative command in the Torah? The pasuk says, that you should not eat chametz on it, meaning the Korban Pesach, and these are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Amar Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Shimon says to him, Vichi efshar loimer, can you really say such a thing? We already know that the issue of loisachal alav chametz shivas yom techal alav matzahs means that you have to eat matzahs as a result of it, meaning that's not Erev Pesach, that is only on Chai matzahs. And what is the reply? Rabbi Yehuda Shaper Kamar le Rabbi Shimon. He says, Taka. Rabbi Shimon said, good. What is going to be your response to that? Rabbi Yehuda Amar Lach. Rabbi Yehuda would say to you, no, this is coming to tell you that there is a chiyuv of matzahs even bisman hazeh. Even bisman hazeh, there is still going to be a chiyuv of matzahs. Says Rashi lekava chayva. What does it mean? It says the hashivas yom teichlu matzahs lav le actually isur chametz le mitzvah achilas matzah. Doesn't come to connect the isur of eating chametz to the mitzvah of eating matzah. Ella la actually achilas matzah la azharis chametz. It comes to tell you that the obligation of eating matzah is connected to the isur of chametz. Likvaya achilas matzah chayva ledaris. To tell you that in all generations you need to be eating matzah. Kol zman shehu muzar al chametz. Anytime that there is an isur of chametz, you will still have a chiyuv of matzah. Afilu bisman she'ein Pesach, even if there's no Korban Pesach. Because don't tell me al matzahs umrayim yochlu that you need to have both Pesach and that you need to have matzah and maror as a result of the Korban Pesach. No, the obligation of eating matzahs is for all future generations, even if there is no Korban Pesach. Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Shimon, how does he know that you have this chiyuv for all generations? He learns it out of the pasuk that says that you have an independent chiyuv of eating matzahs at night, on the night of Pesach. Rabbi Yehuda, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, he needs a pasuk to tell you that a person that was tamei, that was far away from the Beis Hamikdash, that what would you have said? Since he is not eating Pesach, matzah umar nami loy nechal. He should not eat matzah umar either. since he's far away from the Beis Hamikdash, he's potter from Karban Pesach. If he's potter from Karban Pesach, maybe he should be potter from matzah and mar as well. Kamash Malan, that is not the case. Kamash Malan, that he would still have a chiyuv of matzah, even if there is a Beis Hamikdash and he, for whatever reason, is b'derech hachayka, is tameh, that he doesn't bring the Karban Pesach. Kamash Malan, that he still has to eat matzahs. For Rabbi Shimon, you don't need a pasuk to tell you that. Because he is no worse than an arel, an uncircumcised male Jew, uven nechar, or a somebody that is a convert. That an arel is not allowed to eat from the Karban Pesach. He is not allowed to eat from it. But he is allowed to, and he's obligated to eat matzah and mar. Rabbi Yehuda holds ksiv b'hai uksiv b'hai. It's written with this and it's written with that. Meaning, what's written with this and written with that? It's written b'hai with regards to an arel and a ben nechar. Uksiv b'hai, and it is written with that, meaning with regards to a tameh and derech chayka. So, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're going to need an additional din to tell me that there is a chiyuv of matzah every day, even though you have a din of arel and called arel called arel lo yachavai, v'chol ben nechar lo yachavai. Sorry, ben nechar not this means a non-Jew, meaning a ger is chayv in Karban Pesach. There's a beautiful Meshech Chachma that argues that the Karban Pesach is the Karban Hager itself. Without bringing a Karban Hager would not be able to, but the ger fulfills the mitzvah of Karban Hager with the Karban Pesach. Says Rabbi Yehuda, since the pasuk says about both Ben Nechar and Arel, as well as B'derech Chayka and Tameh, so you need an additional pasuk to tell me that those dinim are going to be different. And Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we will continue on Shabbos Kodesh and at some point on Matzei Shabbos as well. Everybody should have a beautiful day and a beautiful Erev Shabbos. We'll see you later.